Calling all guitar players, calling all guitar players. This episode is brought to you by guitarplayback.com. Get your jam tracks, video lessons, map tracks, and more. At guitarplayback.com, enter in the coupon code podcast at checkout and get 50% off your next order. That's guitarplayback.com. Ignite your musical personality.
Welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. Today's special is Jennifer Batten, legendary guitarist.
Drummer test your snare.
Quiet on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage.
Hello, welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. I'm Anna, with me is my co-host Dan, and today we have a legend among us. She's amazing guitarist. She's played for legends like Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck. She's toured around the world. She's done her own albums, and now she's on to do an instructional DVD on truefire.com, but she's going to tell us all about her. I'm super excited. Let's welcome, joining us via Skype, is the one, the only, Jennifer Batten!
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Oh, you guys are having a fiesta down where you at?
How's it going?
It's going great, man. It's the first summer I get to spend mostly at home for a long time, so I'm getting into all kinds of domestic projects along with music.
That's the thing with artists. We're always doing something else, so it's actually a pleasure to do. Like, yes, we're at home. We can do laundry and just enjoy.
Well, I don't get too excited about laundry, but gardening is another thing.
Oh, nice. Do you grow yourself?
Yeah, not much, but I'm so fed up with the lack of taste in commercial tomatoes. I'm growing my own this year, finally.
You know what? Bravo. That's impressive.
But tell us a bit about yourself and how you got started. I mean, you've had a massive career. How did it all begin?
Well, I suppose it was a seed planted in my head as a young child. Started playing guitar when I was 8, and
was there anything that led you to playing the guitar, or was it just random, hey, there's a guitar, I'll just pick it up?
Well, my dad was a big music fan and played guitar also, so that was a big influence. Plus, he always had music playing in the house.
Nice. What type of music?
Jazz. He was really into jazz.
Nice.
But, when the Beatles hit, the whole neighborhood was involved in it, and it was the biggest deal ever.
Right.
That was a big thing. And I started taking lessons early on and eventually went to the Musicians Institute in Hollywood.
Nice.
Gosh, graduated in, 79 from there, and ended up getting the Michael Jackson tour.
How did that go about?
Well, because I was a graduate of MI and also taught there, there was, they had a referral service.
Okay.
And somebody from Michael Jackson's camp called and said, send us a couple people to audition. And I was one of the lucky winners.
Oh, excellent.
That's amazing. You toured like 3 tours with him. The History Tour, the Dangerous one, and Bad, right?
Yeah, it was 10 years.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I wanted to know, did you have your hair was really poofy back then. Was that before or after Michael Jackson?
Oh, that was Michael's idea.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
Yeah, he wanted me to stand out on stage, and so he hired an artist to draw up a look. And there's plenty of photos that you see the stage is dark, you see Michael lit, and you see my hair.
That's awesome. I never thought of it as a stage plot.
And it really did have that big stage presence to it. I mean, that was, and I've noticed that with Michael Jackson, it wasn't, he seemed like he was very much not just for himself standing out, but he wanted the rest of the group to really stand out with him.
Yeah, he wanted to wow people. I was one of the special effects.
Yay! And it must have been nice to be with a specific artist for such a long time, right?
Oh, yeah. I never took it for granted that he'd keep bringing me back. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah. And I want to know, when is that moment that you decided that, being a musician was what you wanted to do? It wasn't going to be being a beekeeper. You wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, I remember I announced that to my mother when I was 12, and probably the only reason I remember that is that she immediately warned me about what a competitive business it was. Which, when you're 12 years old, that means nothing.
Right.
That's a very good point. And are you from California, or where are you from?
I was born in upstate New York.
Okay.
My parents came from Boston, and then we moved to San Diego when I was 9 years old.
Oh, wow. And were your parents supportive of the music, or, were they just warning you a lot about it?
They were very supportive. I think it was after the first or second Jackson tour, though, that, mothers are motherly and they're concerned about your future. And she suggested having something to fall back on. And
right.
I always remember it was Eddie Murphy on one of the late night shows that was saying, if you have something to fall back on, you will.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always tell everyone because, there's so many people that are out there that will say, oh, you're a musician. What's your fallback plan? And I always tell them I try not to have one until I absolutely have to have one, because otherwise you'll focus too much on that and then you'll go toward that instead.
That's absolutely right, man. You have to have a beeline focus to do what you want to do, or it's not going to happen.
Right. And now, you were talking about how you went to the Musicians Institute, and I understand you really got into the tapping technique that you do from there. Yeah,
it was every month we got a seminar by players of a huge variety of styles, and all but one was a guitar player, and the one that was not was Emmett Chapman.
Oh.
He invented the Chapman stick that's all tap controlled. And there was a fellow classmate named Steve Lynch that, the rest of us all saw this clinic and we're going, yeah, great, it's fantastic, but we're trying to learn guitar. And this was tuned differently and a whole different technique. But Steve Lynch, the seed was planted in his head to experiment with tapping on guitar, and this was before Van Halen hit. So Steve came up with some really interesting stuff that I found very intriguing. So that was the seed that got me into tapping.
Yeah, and I mean, you've really taken it to a whole new level. You do the 8-finger tapping, and you do a lot of really, really interesting ways of using it.
Well, it's just a matter of experimenting. It's like playing a whole new instrument and seeing what you can come up with. And I really had a drive because it sounded so fresh to me. Right,
exactly. And now in terms of your own projects and, your own means of getting out there, what are things that you've found over the years have worked for you, and what are things that haven't worked? Maybe getting your name out there, maybe, as the business is changing throughout the years, is it tough to keep your name out there?
Yeah, actually, it was Michael Jackson's manager that I was talking to one night that said, it's easy to make anybody a star. Keeping them there is the problem.
Right.
Especially in America, because you get bored with people so fast. You're into somebody, they're in your face, millions and millions of dollars, as far as pop stars, are put in to keep them in your face. And then, you're lucky if you last 2 years.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of the music industry, obviously, there are a lot of differences, but how have you noticed that, it's changed?
Well, the digital age came in and changed everything. It's empowered the artist, which is good and bad because most of us are kind of airheads when it comes to business. So we do have the power to make things happen by, spending 4 hours a day on the internet, but most of us don't do that.
Right.
But what it's done is really opened up the possibility for a wider variety of music, because people can create whatever they want and put it out there. And if it resonates with other people and gets popular, then go for it. If you're going to join on with a major label, especially, you have to play stuff that's really safe and not too experimental. It's like a money product. It's got to be something that people understand, but they're not threatened by. And there's got to be a certain component that is familiar to people.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting back to, what works and what doesn't, what are specific things that you find, that you're noticing that you've done that really has worked for you well, especially in today's day and age? And, what are maybe some things that you've noticed other people are doing that you really don't think works?
I'm kind of one of the airheads, really. As far as business, I have had very short periods of having managers and found that they were insane. Just the thought of having somebody that speaks on your behalf is kind of scary.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. If you have a manager that has a proven track record, then they're busy as hell, and they're not likely to put a huge amount of time into you. And the odds of getting somebody that's a talker that's completely full of crap are really high. So,
yeah.
I pretty much keep it grassroots and low key, and I've had the good fortune of having great gigs, so that's what's gotten me out there. Michael Jackson introduced me to a couple billion people.
Right.
You think of the kind of money it would take to take somebody that's unknown and launching them that big. It would be a ridiculous amount of money that most people couldn't afford.
Right.
Absolutely.
He got me known in the pop world. A majority of people don't know my name or my music, but they know me as the girl with the hair. So that's worth something, and it got me a lot of endorsements with different musical instrument companies, as well as in the guitar magazines. And then the gig with Jeff Beck, which was 3 years long, that there was people that kind of wrote me off as being a pop guitar player, and all of a sudden everybody's head is turning.
Right.
Anybody that plays guitar has got to have respect for Jeff.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Those were things that I did not expect. All I was doing was following my dream and my passion of playing music and being involved on a local level with a ton of bands. I was in 6 bands and teaching 6 days a week.
Wow.
I can't even focus on one band.
Well, at that time anyway, in Hollywood, it was very common because they were all original bands. And with originals, there's very little, if any, money involved. And you're lucky to play once or twice a month.
Right.
It's interesting. I mean, you say how, back then it was mostly, original bands and not making a lot of money from it. I feel like it's still kind of like that. And I've noticed, a lot of the venues now are mostly hiring cover bands. And it's so funny because you can actually make more money nowadays playing other people's music than you can playing your own music.
That's pretty much the way it's always been until you get to the level where your music is recognized and you have a fan base that brings in enough money that you can live off of it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean the tribute band thing. Every town has a Journey band, and
right, exactly.
And that's and you think of it on the money side of it and the club owner side of it is when people go out to see a Journey band, they know what they're getting.
That's true.
It's not an original band. Well, we haven't heard any of your songs, or maybe a couple, and it's mostly your family that shows up. And unless you're an original band with a great following, the clubs don't want to know about it because they're not going to make money off you.
Right,
exactly.
That's a very good point.
What are some things that you found have not worked?
Spending money.
Okay.
Honestly, putting money out on Google Ads or, Facebook, they entice you with.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It drives me crazy. I feel like I'm with some of the things, I feel like I'm spending more money than actually making. I'm like, what's the point if it's not going to make it?
Well, I feel like the stuff that you spend money on, I feel like it can work, but you have to be insanely strategic about it. And most of us aren't insanely strategic about it. We just go, okay, you put Justin Bieber's name in it and everyone will see it, right? But no, that's not really how it works.
Yeah, unless you really see a result. For instance, if you put some money into Facebook ads and then ask how many people at the show came because of that, then you're essentially throwing your money away, which I've done.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to listen to a clip from Flight of the Bumblebee, played by Jennifer Batten. We will be right back.
Now, what has been your best gig and your worst gig?
Wow. I've had a lot of worse gigs.
I think it's called being a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's always ups and downs. Well, the Super Bowl is probably one of the most memorable just because it was a one-of-a-kind thing.
Right.
There went out so many people.
Tell us all about this experience.
It was really fun just because of the energy around it. And honestly, that's the only time I ever felt that Michael was nervous. because there was so much pressure on him to do a live thing. You know, if there was any major screw ups, that's forever.
Right.
You know? And your career, and some careers have been ruined by that sort of thing. You know, when the tracks screw up, or look at Milli Vanilli, the guy committed suicide over it, for God's sake.
Jeez.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, but on the positive side, it was really fun because there was a few days rehearsal, and part of the rehearsal was the guys that had to move the pieces of stage in place, you know, literally during the time of a Lay's potato chip commercial.
Right.
So a pop gun or somebody saying go, and these guys would grab the pieces of stage and run to the center of the field, put them together, then we jump on top of it. And it was just really fun because it was so different and just one of a kind that would never happen again.
Right.
Yeah. So that was my morning, Sunday morning, and I was not a football fan, so I can't even tell you who was playing.
Now, all right, so maybe not your worst gig, but do you happen to recall any gigs, you know, where maybe just a lot of stuff went wrong and you've learned a lot from it?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the game, as long as I have been, there's always shit that'll go wrong.
Right.
And pardon my swearing, but
That's all right.
you know, pieces of gear that go wrong. I remember one time right before I was supposed to go on stage, I had this guitar with a kind of a weird tremolo system, and I was having trouble getting the bar in, and I pushed it so hard that it went right into the body and destroyed the guitar.
Oh my
jeez.
God.
So I literally couldn't even play, and I just go on stage and I asked if there was any luthiers in the house.
I
Nice.
love that.
Yeah, so fortunately there was, and somebody, you know, it took 15, 20 minutes while I told stories, but the guy took the guitar good enough so I could play.
That's awesome.
But were you able to keep to then play the whole set, or did they cut you short because of that?
Well, that particular night, it was just me doing my multimedia show with film. So people, they're usually glad to, you know, do a Q&A and hear stories that they wouldn't normally hear.
Right.
While somebody's working on the guitar. That's happened a few times. When I travel, you know, unless it's with a big band like Michael or Jeff, or there's cartage, I take one guitar. So if I break the string, sorry, but you got to wait.
Right.
Yeah, and I've noticed a lot of people are doing that nowadays, especially because, you know, I mean, I feel like you used to hear all the time about guitarists would go on shows with, you know, like two, three, four guitars, and now they're all going with just one guitar. But that's, you know, I've always wondered about that. What happens if you're playing a big show? You know, like what would have happened if you were playing, you know, the Super Bowl show and your guitar got ruined?
Well, for something like that, I mean, Michael can bring as many guitars as he wants, and I did a ton. And, you know, if it was a high-pressure thing where people have paid a lot of money, I would arrange for a spare to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But the airlines are such bastards nowadays. I mean, I have to pay $100 each leg of a flight just to bring my guitar.
No kidding.
Seriously? But aren't there laws now where you can put the guitar in the glove compartment?
The glove compartment?
Glove
the compartment?
Yeah.
Yeah, in America and certain parts of the world, but I do a lot more work outside of America.
That's true. My God, that's mean.
Because of the show that I do, I take so much crap on board. I have 2 projectors, 2 laptops, and there's no way I could bring a guitar also.
Right?
Yeah.
I can imagine.
And now, you know, in terms of everything that you've done so far, what would you say that's one of the biggest challenges you've had, or what's been your biggest challenge?
Wow, I could write a book on challenges.
Being a musician, challenges.
Well, you know what? The first thing that comes to mind is people that are completely full of crap. Like, for instance, I had a gig booked in Colorado with a project that's it's slow going, but it's a Michael Jackson kind of a tribute show that I'm involved in.
Okay.
And we had this show booked for months. It was supposed to be this big funk festival in Denver, and I just found out it was canceled.
Seriously?
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't have it together. So, you know, all the singers, all the dancers that made their calendar open for that day, and probably, actually 5 days, because we had to come in and do rehearsals. it's just toast. Yeah, you know, there's no money to fill that gap.
Also, and they may have missed out on some shots because of that. That's what I hate, what they don't realize.
You know, there's no end to it. I would say I've got an agent now in Italy that is the first agent I've had on my own that actually puts his money where his mouth is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He fills up work, man. I mean, like one of the first tours I did with him, he wanted a month, and that made me nervous because a lot of times I've given people a month and they end up with 4 shows only.
Oh,
Right.
my.
And before I left town, there was 2 days free, and I thought, great, I can do my laundry in those days. And by the time I got there, every single day was booked.
No kidding.
Wow.
It's a joy, but it's very rare because so many people are talkers.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. But I mean, he just really just amped it up and got you a gig pretty much every day.
Yeah, well, he's been in the business for 20 years, which means a lot. It means,
Yeah.
you know, the guys that are just starting out or have big dreams, but they don't have the personal contacts. So,
Right.
yeah, it's very risky.
I gotcha. Well, speaking of challenges, we actually have a new challenge for you today because
All right.
we are up to our segment, the question of the week. Question of the week. Check this out, guitar players. You want to kick ass at guitar like Jennifer Batten? Well, I'm going to help you get there. Have you ever wanted one website for all your guitar needs? GuitarPlayback.com is that site. It's got video lessons, jam tracks, licks, David Walliman's revolutionary map tracks, and a whole bunch of free stuff. You are going to get so much from this site that you will be rocking and kicking ass in no time. Get 50% off your next order by heading on over to GuitarPlayback.com and entering in the coupon code PODCAST at checkout. That's half off your next order. GuitarPlayback.com. Ignite your musical personality. So in this segment, we'll ask our interviewees a new question every week, and they have to think of the funniest answer that they can come up with. To our listeners, write in your questions on our Facebook at facebook.com/Entertainment Drive-Thru and our Twitter at eDrive-Thru, and we just might use it as the question of the week. Now, Jennifer, are you ready?
I'm not sure.
All right, well, let's try this. So, question is, what has been one of the funniest or most embarrassing things that you've seen or done in the studio or on tour?
Oh, I got a good one for you.
All right.
And it's easy to talk about because it didn't happen to me.
Those are always the best ones.
Yeah. On Michael Jackson's Bad Tour, the other guitar player is John Clark, who's out with the Michael Cirque du Soleil now. And at the end of Working Day and Night, there was a stop where everybody would freeze.
Right?
Whatever pose you were at, you'd freeze. And so he froze with his legs wide open and his pants split, and he wasn't wearing underwear.
No! Oh my God.
You got 50, 60, 70,000 people going, yeah.
So that's like when Janet Jackson, had that, what they call it, a wardrobe malfunction. He had a wardrobe malfunction.
No. I have a question. Was this videotaped? This is back in the day. So like nowadays, this would be on the internet ASAP. How grateful is he that it was like back in the day?
Yeah, right? Well, all the shows are filmed, but I don't know if the camera was on him.
No, I hope not. I mean, for his sake.
I bothered to try to find it.
Did Michael know about that afterwards? Or did you guys just crack up about that?
Michael was laughing for the rest of the show.
I mean, I could just imagine that happening nowadays, and you just see the flashes from the camera, and his face just goes from like white to like just straight red.
You got that right.
Oh my goodness!
And did he like go then in the back and have it fixed, or like afterwards, or how did he recover?
I'm sure when the song was over, sure.
But he had to have it like hang in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long was the pause?
In embarrassing years, it was probably at least 10 seconds, which 2 seconds would seem like forever.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
That's epic. Oh my God.
So nothing embarrassing about you, but that's just incredibly embarrassing for him.
You know what's interesting though? Yeah, I think why there are no rock stars today is because if they were, they'd be so exposed. That's the thing. But everybody have their like cell phones and all that stuff. Like you can't do anything nowadays.
See, that's the thing is, I feel like nowadays it's more stressful being a musician.
Yeah.
Because if you do one thing wrong, it's there forever.
Everyone will know.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I just added a new song to my my film show, which is an instrumental version of Britney Spears' "Oops, I Did It Again."
No.
Oh yeah.
Just because the title cracked me up, and so for every chorus, I took all the YouTube videos of people falling off stage.
No way.
Nice.
And runway models falling. It's awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm dying to see your show now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell us a bit about the show because I realized we haven't really touched on this yet.
Well, after I was done with Jeff Beck's gig, I started thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? And I really wanted to get my own music out there, but the thought, I hate being a band leader, and I hate scheduling things, and I hate the little games and whining and complaining that band members can do. So I thought there's got to be a way I can do my show by myself, but just playing to tracks is lame. So I came up with doing a film show, and I got... God, I spent like a year and a half trying to contact film schools, and because I didn't make films.
Right.
And I had about 50 people take MP3s to work with. And after all that time, I only ended up with 4 films.
Okay.
So one of the guys that made me a film showed me how to do it. And I became completely obsessed with it. And now I have probably 3 hours of music in sync with films that I can do live. So it's a -1 kind of thing. I played obviously live guitar over it, and there's so many images and so many different styles of film now that I found I can really entertain a much wider audience than would just come to see me, even with a band. Because there's, I've even had young kids that sit through the whole show, entertain.
Nice. And what type of topics do you go on? Is it like what images do you show and such?
Well, for instance, I've got a show called Cruising the Nile, and it's all Egyptian based. So you see camels and pyramids and all kinds of stuff. And I did a whole show, which I've only done once, that is, it's Michael Jackson stuff. And I had 3 singers, 3 horns, and the drums, keyboards, and bass were on tracks in sync with films. And for instance, for Smooth Criminal, I've got old black and white murder mystery stuff and zombie thriller.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So instead of just taking these songs and playing them with tracks in the background, you add video and images to really like. So it's not just everyone's just staring at you doing kind of like a glorified karaoke type thing.
Yeah, and the images also are not random. They're all cut in sync, so they change the beat, and there's like themes for every chorus. And you can go to my website, and it's an old promo, but on the performances page, you can get an idea of snippets of the different things.
Exactly.
And I started out with all originals, but I've added some covers like Teen Spirit.
Nice.
It's instrumental, but the footage is kind of hilarious. It's all about teenage angst, and there's some footage I took from an old film called Marijuana, and it shows people just out of their minds dancing and falling down. It's hilarious. So,
and you got these videos from YouTube, or you just found people that were doing all these things?
I will say the internet is a huge and massive place. So, some of them I buy. There are subscription sites where you can get really good quality stuff, which I've done quite a few films like that. I did I Am the Walrus, and I used a site called AniStock, ANI, that's got all animation footage you can cut together.
Ooh.
Interesting. And it's all like royalty free and all that, or I mean, you're essentially you're paying for a license. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and there is a lot of royalty-free stuff, like old Betty Boop footage. I love that stuff. It's so creative.
Nice. Yeah. I love that. It's classic.
And
love it.
And on the technical side, you were telling us before we got started here that you're actually doing some instructional DVDs now. You want to tell us a bit about this? What was it, on TrueFire?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. They've been after me for years, and I finally decided to do it. I never looked forward to the idea of having a camera in my face while I'm explaining things. So I finally jumped on the bandwagon, and I'm really glad I did, because it's got my head back into the left brain as far as music and the technical side of it and breaking things down. Mm-hmm. And so it's a whole new world that my brain is working on in the background. And so I did a course. I have 2 courses out now. One is on rhythm, one's on lead guitar. And I go into a creative side of it. They're called sauce, rhythm sauce, rock lead sauce, because it's not so much about here's the scales you need, here's where you put your fingers.
Right.
It's on the interesting things, like how to bring something alive and make it personal and make it resonate with people and bring more emotion out of yourself.
That's really cool.
And the creative side of rhythm as well. There's a hell of a lot more to rhythm guitar than just strumming.
Oh, there certainly is. And that's the thing that I think that a lot of people, that play guitar are so misled about, is that everyone looks at the lead guitar and they go, oh, that is it. That's all I need to ever know. But I mean, if you are an amazing rhythm player, first of all, you'll get all the gigs. Second of all, you'll be able to play. I feel like you'll be able to play your lead a lot more clear and present, because you're going to be focusing, not just on what's flashy, but also how can I make this rhythmic?
Yeah, and while I'm listening to the helicopter in the background, it reminds me of why I left L.A.
And now, when are these videos hopefully going to be released?
Well, the Rock Rhythm Sauce and Rock Lead Sauce, you can download them now at truth.com. And the other one will probably be out by Christmas.
Excellent. Now, I wanted to ask you, in everything that you've done so far, along the way, what has been some of the best advice you've ever gotten? Maybe something that's just stuck with you.
Just do your thing, because if you're really focused on fame, you're really going to be focused on the future. And what you want to be focused on is today.
Exactly.
And enjoy your life now. Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people are just so focused on, well, I mean, I want to be, the next, this person or this person. Like, I want to be the next Michael Jackson, be that big. But you're not going to get there unless you focus on the journey of getting there.
And you got to think, why do you want that? I mean, the bottom line is what everybody wants is self-love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people want to be famous because everybody else is going to love them. Mm-hmm. But, when they hit that spot, if they hit that spot and all kinds of people think they're great and they are not that cool with themselves, then they start getting into drug abuse and diverting or distracting themselves from progress just because they're not caught up with the love. They don't love themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also wanted to bring this up, and I wanted to know what your opinion is on this, because, I mean, since I was a kid, I remember everyone always says that, oh, you'll go off to Hollywood, but most people don't make it, or most people don't get out there. And then I get here and I realize, well, 2/3 of the people out here are barely trying. I mean, it's, I've met a lot of people out here where they say they want to do it, and then you give them the opportunity and they don't take it.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, have you noticed the same thing?
Yeah, it's very common. And on that note, I would say that everybody that wants to be in a creative art, whether it's music or painting or whatever, needs to get a copy of The Artist's Way book.
I heard about that.
It's by Julia Cameron, and it is like a psychological guide through making a living as a creative.
Yeah.
And it deals with that, because you will run into so much negativity, and if you don't have a thick skin and you don't believe in yourself, that can knock you down.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So it's the kind of book that's kind of like a Bible for creatives, and you should read it every year, because we learn all this stuff and then we forget.
Yeah, and I just think it's so interesting, though, because, I mean, I came from the Midwest where, it seemed like a lot more people were doing it just as just like a fun thing to do, or they wanted to do it, but really they just wanted to go out and play at the bars to their friends, or they wanted to play for just whoever was there. And so it wasn't really so much that they were putting a lot of effort into it, but they weren't not putting a lot of effort into it. And I found that when I moved out to LA, it seemed like it was just completely different in the sense that everyone wants, like you said, everyone wants to be famous for whatever reason it is, but but a lot of people just aren't putting out the effort. And then they complain and they moan about how, it's so hard. No one will ever make it in this industry. And it's like, well, you're not trying.
Oh, I'll never forget. I was struggling through my first record and had a meeting at BMI, and the woman that signed me up said, the record was kicking my ass. It's hard work, and she was saying, making the record is the easiest part. And I found that so depressing. I think, oh Jesus, I thought I'd have a little break when this thing is done. But
no, that's when the real work starts.
It's like anybody can make a product. You look at all the people that are on Shark Tank trying to make their product go, and the ideas are the easiest part. The product, it takes some effort, but getting people to buy it is like 90%.
Oh my goodness. And it's a nightmare sometimes. I mean, unless you're, as big as some of the stars out there, it's tough and even for them, it's tough to get their products out there. Because I mean, with all the the piracy and the torrents and all of that stuff, it's hard to make money off that. And then because everyone thinks, you just put your music out there and people will get it, but there's not a lot of money anymore in that.
Yeah, all the reality shows that are out there, I would love to see one that tells the truth of behind the scenes.
Oh my goodness, yes.
You see American Idol and you see these kids get up there and they want to be the biggest star, and even the winners, nobody talks about how the company behind American Idol gets 75% of the money.
Yeah.
Whoa. That's crazy. I did not know that.
Back on resources real quick, you mentioned a book, but do you have any internet sites that you recommend? You mentioned one earlier, but what are some other sites that you recommend that you think at least every musician should at least know about?
Well, there's some standard stuff. I mean, all the social media sites you should have a presence on.
Right.
You should have a way to put out HTML newsletters, which I pay Reverb. It's a pretty steep thing. It's $14 a month, but there's other things like Constant Contact. I think it's $30 a month. And I'm sure there's better deals out there. But having a presence there with your music, your videos, everybody's got a GoPro camera or a smart camera, and being able to cut your own video is pretty much free these days.
Yeah.
With iMovie, you can do a really good video without paying a lot of money. All you can do is load up your sites and try to get people interested. And then there's a bazillion podcasts, this is stuff I should do myself, and I'm shooting all over myself because I don't do it.
I'll tell you though, I mean, it is a lot of work getting a podcast run. I mean, as people can imagine, but it's unbelievable with all the stuff that musicians do. I see so many of them doing podcasts, and I envy them because this is about all I'm able to do.
Yeah, well, it comes down to time management, and there's an app for everything.
Oh, there is. And actually, before we get to the end here, I wanted to ask you, because I just found out about the site recently, and it's really interesting. Have you heard of NumaBoocom?
No, how do you spell that?
It's NumaBoocom. And it's basically the Facebook for the music industry. And yeah, and I hadn't heard of this, and I'm curious to know who has, because I ran into one friend so far that knows of it. And it's essentially like you can upload your music, you can do live streaming, you can upload video, you can upload images. And everyone that's on there is in some form of the industry. There's artists, there's producers, there's managers, publicists. I mean, I went on there for like 5 seconds, and I noticed like Steve Lukather is on there, and you can just contact these people. It's cool.
Yeah, well, that's a hard thing to get a new social media site out there. I mean, Google's been trying forever, and LinkedIn is something I'm on also. And it's what it really is. It's just an annoyance because I've never gotten one thing out of that.
Right.
I turn anybody down. I go, okay, you can contact me now.
Exactly.
You know, it's like anything. It's like a product. You got to put $1 bazillion into to let people know about it and get people to use it.
Right. Exactly.
You know, MySpace. Who could have known that whoever the hell bought that it would just dump immediately because everybody was using it. And frankly, I hope that my Facebook is replaced by something because I don't.
Oh yeah.
It's going downhill. Actually, there are more people using Instagram now than there are using.
Really?
I think, yeah, because everybody's so ADD, they like pictures. So therefore, I don't know. The more celebrities, and then you can just follow them and all that stuff. I think it's very convenient for them. So
Yeah,
and I mean, I've just noticed though, you know, I mean, because you brought up Google. I mean, everyone was I remember we went to an event not too long ago, and someone was telling me, he was like, "Oh, you should get on Google Plus," and I'm thinking, I have not heard one friend talk about Google Plus the entire time it's been up. And I get on there and I notice, I mean, a few of my friends are there, but I'm thinking if all my friends are on Facebook, you know, why am I going to go to Google Plus? And I think that's one of the reasons why we have so many issues with finding the right ones to be on is because, I mean, who's on them and what's the reach you're going to get based on that specific one?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you never know. Things can change overnight.
Exactly.
Very, very true.
So, when in doubt for a band, they should just get on everything.
Oh, absolutely.
I like
I really agree with that. Well, unfortunately, we are down to the end of the interview, but where are places that our listeners can find out more information about you and your projects?
Everything is always at Batten.com or JenniferBatten.com,
Okay.
Batten. You know, all shows that are coming up. And I have a new website that's going to be up later this summer that will have a link to Facebook and Twitter because I'm pretty good about putting stuff up on Facebook now.
Nice.
I avoided it for many years. So, when I'm out on the road, I'll put pictures up of what's going on. So that's the best.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being on the show. It's really been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for calling.
Absolutely. And for more information on Jennifer Batten and the podcast, go to entertainmentdrivethru.com and subscribe on iTunes. Like and follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter and Instagram at edrivethru.
This is Jennifer Batten, and you are listening to Entertainment Drive-Thru.